Ladies and gents, and this is Shootas Blood and Teef review. Use a GIT by Tom Bricky. This is a Warhammer 40k game, Shootas Blood and Teef, and it's gonna come out this year or it's already done. It says 2022. That's what YouTube tells me, but okay. So yeah, Bricky and Warhammer is always fun. So this is about a game, so it's gonna be even more fun. So let's watch it. Remember, if you like my next, don't forget to subscribe. So I know which type of videos to do tomorrow. Check out the Rick Sunday. There's a link in the description, and yeah.
Hello everyone. I don't have a normal sponsor today. Instead, I wanted to talk about my own stuff. I have a merch store and I don't advertise it a ton, even though I always have it in my little like slap title card and down there in the description, but it's getting pretty expansive and I think it might be a good time to talk about it. So many of you might know I used to be called Bricky Orchid 8. I am a beautiful orchid, an old Microsoft generated Xbox 360 live username. And I changed it to just Bricky because everyone just called me Bricky. And the Orchid 8 part I actually turned into my merch store, and I just recently got a major office for it, more employees. It's really expanding, kind of crazy, and we're offering a ton more stuff since the last time I ever advertised it. Like, there's a ton of designs going over a myriad of things. There's a bunch of original designs like the crest tee or hoodie that says thick thighs save lives in Latin. Very proud of that one. You may have seen the life is hard but that's okay shirt I wear sometimes, and there's some that are legally distinct and based on things I really enjoy, like Outer Wilds, one of the best games ever made. I have a really awesome shirt that I like for that one. But not only that, we're actually going really hard into dice and prints. I sell actual physical dice that have the word POG on the 6 and also the twerking Among Us crewmate on the 6 as well. And I sell prints, and not like poster paper prints, because poster paper prints aren't good enough quality. We're talking like full on 280 semi gloss. It's the paper that does like the whoa when you shake it. That, like, it's actual thick ass good photo paper prints. And we have just a brand new one that came out literally this month, which is my little pink bear mascot B sleeping in this gorgeous thing of fall flowers. It's November, like, come on, like, this is the time to have it. And for those of you who are Warhammer people, I have a ton of merch from Adeptus Ridiculous, the podcast, link in the description as well. There's a whole lot now for the store, and I would really like it if you gave it a look. It's orchid8.com. Check out the description, check out whatever you need to do. It's really been a blast doing it. I wear my own stuff a lot, which might sound narcissistic, but it's really goddamn comfortable. Like, why would I ever buy shirts and hoodies that I wouldn't want to wear myself? I don't know, it seems weird to me. So anyway, if you've already bought something from the store, a recommendation from you down in the comments would be really appreciated for those who haven't. And yeah, give it a look-see. Okay, all right, I'm done with that now. Let's go into the orcs. Hello everybody, my name is Bricky, currently leading the Bricktaka Git Crumpa Wah across the solar system. Shootas Blood and Teef is objectively the best name for an orc video game on the market.
Seriously.
Just stole your hair.
Look, man, as soon as it said like orcs, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. Shootas, Blood, and Teef. I can hear it in your orc voice.
Squig. If you're not familiar with Warhammer, orcs don't have hair. They have animals called squigs that serve a variety of functions, and one of those functions is hair. Listen, dude, there is a canon story in Warhammer about an orc that goes back in time to kill himself so that he can have 2 copies of his favorite gun. Okay, like, don't worry about it. So the main objective of the story is to get back to the boss and get your hair back. I'm also a little disappointed I didn't have a Keep sponsorship for this video. The point is that when the orcs are on screen, this is a proper orc game. The cutscenes are a highlight and they are consistently excellent. So the gameplay of Shootas Blood and Teef is a lot like your Metal Slug and Castle Crasher style game. You have a variety of weapons, all of them with ammo capacities, but with overall like unlimited ammo. You start with a simple arsenal of orc boy weapons. We're talking a shooter, a slugger, and a big old melee weapon. But over time, you'll gather 5 different ranged weapons, including, and you better spell this correctly, the rocket launcher, the boomstick, the burner, and more. This also is accompanied by your dedicated wah button, which represents the green beneath your health bar, of course. When activated, you'll become invulnerable and
God, every time I see Warhammer game, my mind just wanders to the potential of a big-ass RPG open world games like Fallout, with the proper lore implemented in it. Like, there are so many different universes that can come out of this. Like, whole orc verse can be a thing, right? Stories about orc rising up, creating a war, right? How orcs have the abilities to imagine and make shit happen. You can implement that greatly in a gameplay and a story as well. You can create multiple games just based on orcs, let alone Eldars, Imperium. There was a thing like, Star Wars is employing Bethesda or something, right, to make a great game, and everybody just hype like this is like these are open world RPG developers. This is gonna be epic. Because let's be honest, the most immersive game there can be is an open world RPG. There is no other way, right? That is the most immersive. Obviously, open world has still limitation because technology is still not there. So sometimes people want a story-driven linear game because of it. But overall, the best of the best game that ever will be is open world RPG game. So imagine that with some great developer, right? Like Bethesda or something. Doesn't matter how much Bethesda has fallen. I can't think of any other developer who's better at it, right? From Software, sure, but they just make very specific killing type of game rather than a story-driven, great fantasy RPG that Bethesda does. I can just see that, like even with the orcs, it could work.
Fire whatever weapons you are holding at an extremely rapid speed. Other than that, you have a dash, a double jump, a crouch, and that's about it. Gameplay is simple because combat is simple because orcs are simple. Don't overcomplicate this with all those humy mechanics. Use an orc. You fight like one. Starting off, you tend to fight either other orcs, naturally, or the Imperium of Man, mainly guardsmen. The guardsmen are also played like an orc would see them, basically as a bunch of doofus nerds. Throughout the gameplay, you will also gather Teef. Lots and lots of Teef. Teef are, of course, currency for orcs. I don't know why I say of course, as if this is common knowledge. Yeah, Teef are teeth, and teeth is currency. You can use this Teef to purchase new weapons from the mech boy at his shop located at every single checkpoint. Each gun slot has 3 new weapons you can buy. This can be a looted human plasma pistol, giant laser beams, looted bolters, a giant saw as a gun, and more. And don't forget, if you shoot the plasma pistol too much, it overheats and damages you. Nobody can forget the exploding plasma pistol. So you make your way through the Imperium, killing everything here and killing everything there, dealing with the occasional kill 'em all section, and find your way to, of course, the most important part of any game, the orc band. Hit it!
This is fucking epic.
Since in orc law, now that you've killed the boss, you are now the boss, and you get to lead your own army of orcs to get back at Gut Rekka for once again stealing your hair squig. This leads you to fighting more of the Imperium and increasing the enemy variety in a great way. You have company commanders, commissars, rattling snipers, Ogren, a fucking Lehman Russ Punisher tank, and you blast your way through all of them. A note, I really like the background memes here. Purge the unclean for washing your hands. Sisters in arms. There's a lot of good little Easter eggs scattered about. But Easter eggs be gone. It's time for our first major boss. And the realization that even though this is an orc game, I should not expect canon to even come close to this title.
Okay.
So you, a single orc boy, are about to take on a Bane Blade. 11 barrels of hell, which they don't fire at the same time because, video game. But that's when I realized, yeah, okay, this is going to be shenanigans. It's a pretty neat fight. The Bane Blade uses a lot of its weapons and they all have different effects. Even more so when you blow off its turret and it tries to ram you with a very classic, get me closer, I want to hit them with my sword. There is one thing that has me annoyed though, and it isn't the biggest deal, but it really bugs me in this game. Right when you finish a level or kill a boss fight, there is no ending delay. Like, just to let the music fade out or give some time to relax. Instead, the screen goes instant to loading screen and then instant out of loading screen, either to cutscene or gameplay again. It's really jarring and it kills the pacing massively. I know it's a random thing, but let me just show you a completely unedited example.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you see what I mean, right? The pacing is so off, and it does this all the time.
I mean, look, the pause is supposed to be limitation of hardware in the previous games, because in order to load something or bring up the even loading screen, certain things has to trigger. That takes time. But apparently, it has become a feature, right? This just feels like, okay, you kill and suddenly the loading screen and you're on to the next one. Like, Let me soak in first, man. I just did all this shit. Let me just, yeah, defeated it. Let me soak all that in. So I know what he means by that. That's kind of a fucked up thing overall. But yeah, overall, this game feels really fun. This game, just you know, is basically orc style, but I like the bands and guitar. It feels like, you know, Borderland version of this, right? Just taking the spoof, just making it into a spoof type of thing, parody of it. Then again, orcs, a whole thing is parody, right? That's the whole point of them. It's fucking awesome. And when they show like you know, Imperium, like Astra Militarum, they show them weird and stupid because that's how orc sees them. But you know, do they make fun of them too much? Because as far as I know, orcs respect Emperor, right? Because they think he's like a god of war or something like that, right? Because he's, you know, just orc respects, you know, power. Orc respect, you know, battle. If somebody kills certain orcs, they'll be clapping that, like, yeah, look at that. They just like war, so they respect the emperor. So do they make fun of the gods too much, or they just see them as blithering idiots walking around? Are there any Astartes in this one? Like, you fight Astartes as a boss or something. Do they respect them, or they also seen as blithering idiots?
Time.
Is
it
that
needs
kind
a
of
little bit of cooldown, or at least not double up the transitions, going from gameplay to loading screen, then gameplay or cutscene. Just kind of jarring. It's a nitpick. It's like a major nitpick, but it's noticeable. So you move on to the next area, and the environment has most certainly changed a little bit, as have the enemies. Looks like Lutius has already had a major problem on their hands to start with. The entire next area is mostly Genestealer cults and all of the crazy paraphernalia that comes with them. The enemy variety is enhanced too. There are your classic neophytes and then just infected guardsmen, but you'll find hybrids that have their third arm throwing demo charges, or you'll have a Sanctus that's this really fast stabby type, and of course there's gotta be an aberrant in there somewhere. Bosses include your classic Genestealer, you know, the titular, a Biophagus, which was a pretty fun one. But of course, as we all know with Genestealer cults, there's always a Patriarch, and it is responded to exactly how you would expect.
You trespass in the tabernacle of the Earth, the Emperor. Prepare to die.
The Patriarch fight is probably the best fight in the game. It's still very simple, as all the gameplay here is, but I enjoyed a lot for a multitude of reasons. Firstly,
oh my god, I love how he just gives this kind of epic speech about Emperor and things, and the Hawk just laughs it off like, are you serious? You know who you're talking to?
I like the background design. You can see the effigies hanging from the ceiling and all the candles with the big old statue in the back. It's very neat. Secondly, the Patriarch moves quite quickly and fires these little homing psychic missiles at you. So you're playing both run away from the big stabby monster and also run away from the homing attacks at once. And lastly, the Patriarch will scurry away and let its conclave deal with you for a bit, which I think breaks up the action and makes it actually really fun. Now, it's not my favorite boss in the game, but it's one that I think should be looked at more if this game ever receives updates or DLC. You run away, you fight 2 Genestealers, and well.
Okay.
The next bit has you fighting a combination of the cult and the Imperium. More enemies are added, like the Bulgrin with their gauntlets.
So let me get this straight. He fought all them, saw battles, and like, battles, gun. Battles, gun. What should I do? There's only one logical answer. He actually blew himself up and he just propelled outside. Is that it? And he didn't die.
Big old slab shields, and hey, you even get to fight a full-on sentinel, which is shocking to me since this is later in the game. It's a later boss fight, and you've already taken out a motherfucking Bane Blade. But that's okay, because right after this, you're dealing with something scarier.
No, wait a minute, though. The Bane Blade he's talking about is a proper tank. Tank's mobility is not to fight one particular guy in a confined space. So in that way, it doesn't matter how powerful the tank is, obviously, it's not going to be at its full potential. In that way was the early boss, right? Because if it's in the open field and attacking multiple, yeah, it's a fucking powerhouse. In a confined space where you just go forward and backwards is going to be very limiting. In that way, I think was the first boss.
by far. The Space Marines are here. White Scars
Yes.
in particular. Good choice, I say. A fast orc game might as well have the fast Marines to go along with it. Honestly, the Space Marines, though, they're not that tough. They're tougher than some of the singular enemies in the game. You're just so incredibly busted as a singular orc, they aren't that frightening. Now, if they populated the game and there were a ton of Space Marines, okay. They'd be a little bit of a threat, but the only
Wait a minute, can one orc kill a space marine? Is that possible in the lore? Because as far as I know, known from Bricky himself, that space marines are way too OP, right? Any space marine is supposed to be OP thing than anyone else. So can one-on-one a space marine kill an orc can kill a space marine? Can that even happen?
throw a couple of them at you, and they aren't really that much of a challenge, which is too bad because, like, they're Space Marines. You did kill a Bane Blade, though. Though they do find a middle ground because you're now fighting Tempestus Scions that actually are quite a threat in numbers. They're tankier, hit harder, and can sometimes carry plasma guns. And turns out I was wrong. The Khan is back, and you get to take down a White Scars chaplain and his squad, which I have to say, just looking at the chaplain walking around with his little Crozius all stubby-like and trying to whack you with it, it's pretty adorable. It's very silly. I like it a lot. Combat in the war room is strictly prohibited. Commissar Strangelove.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Turns out, just like the tabletop, the Invicta Tactical War Suit dies to a swift breeze. That's too bad. But honestly, this is all filler. This is all prep work. This is all just a gathering of strength, like a gathering of power, a gathering of will for the true fight, the real climax of this game. It's time for the #1 reason to even buy this game.
Fuck you. No.
Attention, Orc! You face Lord Horik Canorum, son of High King Valeric Canorum, High Prince of House Canorum, Master of the Blade of Gaia, Keeper of the Gates of Loralo, Wielder of the Caloric Flame, Bringer of Hope, Herald of the Holy Order of the Adamantine Lance, the Paladin of Koto, Slayer of the Lion of Essa, the Triumphant, the Light of Stars, the Eradicator.
You're gonna fight a titan?
I am Lord Horik Canorum, son of High... Whatever.
Lord Horik Canorum, son of High King of Valeric Canorum, High Prince, etc., is one of the most batshit ideas I've thought of for an orc game, or I've seen for an orc game. Someone thought of for this orc game. Having a single orc take down a Knight Valiant, which by the way, good choice, that's my favorite knight, whose flamethrower, the Conflagration Cannon can...
Oh, sorry, I had to Google that. That's not a Titan, that's Imperial Knight. It's supposed to be much smaller version, right? One-manned version. I'm like, what the fuck? One orc's gonna take Titan? But no, that's not possible. Titan is like, what, 10 times bigger than the Imperial Knight? So orc would be like an ant in front of it, right?
Melt a Lehman Rust tank to sludge is so absolutely ridiculous that it's only offset by that absolutely bopping soundtrack. Rip that shit. Lord Horik is not the best fight in the game, but it is the most hype. There are two main issues with it. The first is that even though it took me far too long than I like to admit to figure this part out, all you gotta do is hide behind the boxes when he attacks you. That is really the entire fight, more or less. Block the Melta gun, dodge the flamer, dodge the harpoon. The missiles are really the only thing you need to think about, because they homing on you. The second main issue is, come on, why didn't you put the entire subtitle on his health bar? Like literally, if you put it over the health bar and you even obscured the health bar with just lines of text, I wouldn't have minded it at all. It sucks that it's just
it's Borderlands shit.
It should absolutely be the whole thing. Stick to your guns, maintain the meme. And hey, I'm just saying, when you kill him,
I'm not gonna lie, if this was Borderlands, they would have done that, right? They definitely would have done that shit.
he like explodes a little bit before they go jarringly into loading screen again, but he could still be in there. If you're gonna make DLC, bring him back, and then like do the whole thing. Come on. This is my favorite boss fight though, just because it's so ridiculous and it's still fun, even if the actual gameplay loop is a bit generic overall. Still, it's just not often you get to watch an orc bash down a knight valiant of all things. But I give them props for a lore accurate knight pilot. Knights are the most proper, pristine heralds of the goodwill of mankind, and they will shout their deeds to the it's that entire monologue. Cheesy, sure. Lore accurate, a little bit, if we're being truly honest.
Come on, it's not a little bit, it's really accurate, right? Imperium, one thing that always gets to me is like, they are really anal. Like, what the fuck? Cringy as fuck. All this title talk like they're in fucking Middle Ages or something. I am this and that. Shut the fuck up.
The knight would have just killed him. But however, maybe it's not that strange of a thought process. I mean, have you ever read Brutal Cunning, in which 2 orcs, a grot, and a squig killed a warlord titan? You know, one of those things they show in the Horus Heresy trailer. That's a good book. I'd recommend. The final section of this game is, of course, naturally in an orc.
Look, I get it. The orcs' whole power is that they are the X factor, right? They can do anything, really. I mean, they could die in hordes by simple, you know, Astartes, or one of them really dedicated can even take down a titan. I understand that whole thing. So it's basically mostly based on their, you know, imagination and things, right? They can do many things. It's all up to them. That's the whole thing of it. So kind of understand, right? Even in the tabletop, they're supposed to be the, you know, random factor, right? Doesn't you don't know what's gonna happen type of thing.
Game against other orcs. You make your way on Gut-Wreck's ship and begin just blasting it up. You fight all manner of orcs, Killicans, and even defy the laws of physics as the spaceship is open to the vacuum of space, which you, of course, use to float because orcs. The final boss fight against Gut-Wreck, it's a bit of a disappointment. All you do is jump up and you shoot him in the face on top of his giant stompa, in which his stompa opens up and then you shoot its stomach. And you rinse and repeat that like 3 times. It's probably the weakest fight in the game, which sucks because it's the final boss of the game. I expected him to like jump out and fight me on foot or something, but no, it's just this. You defeat him though, you take your hair squig back, then you lead your own wah in his stead, and that's the game. You spend your teeth on various new hats in the store and all that, which, you know, if I learned anything from TF2, hats are the true end game. And it might surprise you that it's already over, but yeah, that's the entire campaign. I beat it on normal mode in 1 sitting, and it took me only around 2 to 3 hours. This normally wouldn't be a problem for me because it actually like a pretty good 2 to 3 hours, and minus the weird loading screens, it was paced really well. But the game is $20. There also is really nothing else to do after beating the campaign. You can play with friends, I guess, again, but you're still just playing it again. Hello, this is future Bricky. After playing the game and go through the whole thing, I decided to also throw a little bit of a gameplay thing together for a stream with A Dip Ridiculous. Actually compiled the video for it as well. You can check that out in the description. But let's just say the co-op experience was not as good as the single player one. It was horribly buggy. Some things were funny, like the explosive friendly fire you can have. I think maybe it's not necessarily friendly fire.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
But we encountered a ludicrously large amount of bugs, DK, Diamantes.
I jumped.
My co-host crashed about 4 or 5 times in the 2.5 hours it took us to play it. I shoved Lord Horic off the goddamn map, among many other weird things that happened. So another good disclaimer to add that. Yeah, can be a bit rough in the multiplayer part of it, which is unfortunate because I imagine that would be one of the better ways to play it if that wasn't the case. Also check out Dev's Ridiculous. We do Warhammer podcast stuff. Well, goodbye. It's just extremely content light overall. It's a fun.
Yeah, see, the problem with it is if a game sucks and it's a co-op, that doesn't say much good about it, right? Because it's been said many times that anything you play with your friends is probably going to be good, right? It doesn't require much for you to enjoy co-op, right? It's the single players that are the hard one, like captivating your whole, attention and everything. But co-op, it's just like, doing shit with your friend. It's always going to be fun. But I guess this is very specifically made and driven. Like every enemy is kind of like, you're supposed to attack this, then you're supposed to, do this. It's like a tailor-made thing rather than mostly gameplay based. That's why it's hard for co-op, right? It's a spoof parody of certain things. Certain bosses are like that. You're supposed to fight them. I think it is made for single-player campaign. They made it short somehow, so I don't know how you can justify $20 for 3-4 hours, but okay.
Fun game for sure, but it's done so incredibly fast that you wonder if it really felt like it was worth the price tag for a shorter runtime than Avengers Endgame. And depending on the theater you go to, costing more than the ticket for that movie. It's hard to justify its price tag, no matter how enjoyable those 2 to 3 hours were. When I go to my Steam page and see fucking Hollow Knight for $15, and I mean, sure, maybe it's unfair to compare it to Hollow Knight, an incredibly good game, but it is still a price per game thing. It's up to you. Sure, I think it's better suited as a clean $10. If it had another 1 to 2 hours of content, maybe, but right now I don't think I can recommend it at its price point, which is disappointing because it's still a lot of fun. The voice acting is hilarious and accurate to the lore. The mood is fun, the gameplay is fun, and the soundtrack is genuinely great. But it just doesn't reach a $20 price tag for 2 to 3 hours of gameplay, which is too bad because 40K games are often pretty shit. This one isn't shit. I guess it wouldn't be a Warhammer title if they didn't overcharge you. Thanks, James Workshop.
Now I have to go give Codex Zotes an army-wide 2+ invulnerable save.
Shootas, Blood, and Teef. It's a really fun time. I liked it a lot. $20 though. Not sure about that. If you're doing financially sound, you just don't care, you want to play an orc game, have at it. I've spent a hell of a lot more money on tiny little plastic figures. So truly, I'm not quite sure how much of a say I get in this, but I'm letting you know. Thank you all so much for watching this video, everybody. Please do give my merch store.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Warhammer 40K game, Mechanicus. I mean, I think I started and played a bit of Mechanicus. I never had time to play games. Yeah, Mechanicus was fun somewhat. But yeah, I haven't played Warhammer 40K games, but so far they're mostly just shoot and basic shooters, right? Rarely you can find good one. I guess the latest game that I saw the trailer of, it's also a co-op, but it feels more of fun. But yeah, this is like a parody Borderlands style orc-based game where you see the world through orc eyes. So yeah, I guess it's fun, but they should have made a bit longer game. I mean, you're gonna charge $20. You can make like a 7-8 hours game at least. Just 3-4 hours is way too short. But yeah. Alright, well, if you like my next, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.